Hi there, this is Outdoor Gear Chat. We are on episode 46 today, which is kit list, sea kayaking and climbing in Greenland. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? As always, I'm joined by Cathy. Hiya.
Hey Wayne, I'm Cathy and I am the director and co-owner of the Climber Shop in Ambleside and the Joe Brown shops in Snowdonia. And yeah, kit lists, sea kayaking and climbing in Greenland, definitely a bucket list for me. But we are joined with a very special guest today. Olly is a national trainer for Canoe Wales. He's a member of the Sea Technical Committee for British Canoeing and president of the Arctic Club for 2023. He's obviously a man of a vast experience to hold those positions. So having climbed all over the world, Olly is a PLA d'Or nominee, which for people who don't know is kind of like the Oscar of the climbing and mountaineering world. He's completed 9 expeditions to Greenland, including a 25-day unsupported trip with 12 new routes included. So we are absolutely delighted to welcome Olly Sanders. Welcome, Olly.
Good morning.
Hi, Olly. All right.
Hello.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I've got so many questions just based on the introduction. And all, yeah. So yeah, welcome along.
Well, Olly has obviously a huge amount of outdoor experience, but you do have another life as well, Olly, that I've got to mention because it's absolutely fascinating. So you are a fully qualified light rigger, and you've worked on various different arenas and some key gigs for Genesis and Michael Jackson. I've got down on my list here, but also more importantly in my book on the Batman films. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, this is the shady past, yeah.
Was you the guy? Are you Batman?
No. I mean, if I wore a mask, I might get away with it, but no. No, that was I don't know, that sort of came about because of some connections with stunt riggers that I had. I think I did some training with them because they have to go through a stunt register, and part of that is climbing. So, and then I think basically we had they found out that I had a rigging background, and then I just got invited to come and work for a couple of them. There was 2 individuals, and so I worked on. They've got a big old airship hangar in Bassingbourn, I think, in somewhere, and they basically turned that into Gotham City. So I worked on that one, and that was just generally in that hangar. There was like Gotham City, and then there'd be a back cafe you could go for a coffee while you were waiting to set up some stunts. But and then I got invited to, I think it was I've forgotten what movie it was. It was the one with Bane and probably Dark Knight Rises or something like that. Anyway, so we ended up flying. They called me a little sort of last minute, said just make your way up to Aberdeen, come up to Aberdeen, fly up to Aberdeen, and we're doing some stuff up there. So I flew into Aberdeen Airport, literally grabbed my bags. They took me back to aircraft side, and literally there was a hurt there, and they go, right, jump on board. We're going to sort of run through what we're going to do. And I was thinking, oh my God. So I remember getting on board thinking, I've got a clue what's going on here. So don't leave me in any form of responsibility whatsoever. And we basically, the gig was we flew up, and then we are going to throw somebody out, and then we were going to winch them back up on ropes. So that was the scene. They were sending somebody down onto another plane to rescue this guy. Anyway, so the first time it says pulleys and wheels everywhere, and then so he says, okay, so you can just when we winch them up, you can just transfer them back onto the capstan winch. So basically, they were on single rope. We threw them out the back of the aircraft, and then we sort of trailing them behind. And so we went then to bring them back up. So I remember like clipping the Jumar in to sort of take some of the weight, wrapping the rope around the capstan, and then the idea was, press the capstan and just wind it back up. But a Hercules is mainly hydraulic. There's not a lot of power, and basically it kept clicking out. So we didn't have enough power through the winch to click them back up. So anyway, so this is the first day. So I'm like, okay. So anyway,
And there's somebody flapping around in the wind, basically,
yeah,
out the back of a Herc.
one guy flapping, maybe 2. I can't remember, 1 or 2 were basically outside the aircraft. Of course, you know, if you're skydiving, then the whole idea is that you get stability by falling to earth, not being dragged 125 mile an hour behind a Hercules plane. So he said, "Okay, what are you going to do now? If you go to the ramp and then if you just wave this high vis jacket and do this to them, they'll understand what you're talking about." So I remember I was clipped in, and when we went looking over down these two very pissed off stunt guys being dragged behind the aircraft, and just sort of went like that, and then they had parachutes to cut away the
Oh, no way, really? Yeah.
and then
that was it.
And then off they went. So that was first day.
Oh my word!
So
off the spiral.
Oh.
And hopefully it improved after that then. Yeah.
Well, it did and it didn't really.
Like that, yeah.
We had issues with them all getting tangled up when they were flying, and then I think the second day, one of them, because they basically had a safety dive that would dive out after them.
Yeah.
So and then one guy he was doing a day. He landed in a roof on somebody's roof just off the airfield, and they got a picture of him with his legs stuck in the sort of slates, and then some local resident climbing up the ladder to sort of help him out. And the local headline was "Brilliant." You know?
How do you explain that insurance?
Yeah. So it was a sort of what's happened? Oh yeah, and the guys who flew the Herc come from America because they had a stretched Herc, and they were like these gnarly Vietnam War veterans, and they just come past every day and good job, guys, good job with their baseball caps on. So it was pretty chaotic. I mean, it was quite an awkward stunt to do because, well, most of them are, and they were like being, tail behind an aircraft over 25 mile an hour, and we were building a rig inside the thing, and it was all done on and when the shock to absorb the shock of the sort of, as they're thrown out, they actually have to hit an end point, don't they? It was just bungee cord, just add a bit more bungee cord.
I love that. Yeah. They said they won't got a spare bungee anywhere.
Yeah, so they're very inventive within the stunt world. They sort of use bits and pieces from everywhere. They use a bit of climbing kit, they use a bit of industrial kit, they'll use knicker elastic, they'll just use whatever works. They're actually it goes wrong, but they're very skilled guys. Most of the ones I've worked with have been really impressed, really professional. Yeah.
Awesome. I think I'll stick to selling jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of me fancies diving out of the back of a Herc, but 99% of me doesn't. I think I've got a few mates, probably listening, ex-paras and stuff who've done that sort of business all their lives. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, we best talk about what we're here for. Anyway, sorry, you could spend all day listening to Batman stories, but on your expeditions, Ollie, what sort of prep do you do before heading off?
Well, I normally sort of try and involve other people who are really organised, to be totally honest. Because
I love that. I could see that answer coming in your face as well. I try not to, actually. Yeah.
My preparation, I suppose, is I've been doing it long enough now that actually sort of I can probably do it reasonably easy. But yeah, obviously there's all the logistics of shipping gear and and arranging all the sort of transportation and getting boats out and all that sort of thing. But as far as the kit goes, I know what I need for the trips now, because most of them are combined climbing, paddling. Not all of them, but most of them are. So it's just working out that you can get all that kit in the boats, and then the kit will arrive in time for you to get there. So the shipping, because you have to ship it from the UK all the way to wherever you are, and you never know. Hopefully it's going to be there on time.
Do you pack it in the boat and then ship it in the boat, or do you, if that makes sense, a
couple of different ways. I have shipped boats out there, I've left boats out there, and I've shipped barrels out there. So it depends whether there's access to suitable kayaks where we go. And luckily, one of the places I go to reasonably regularly, there's enough boats there, so but other places have ship boats, and then just hope they turn up Yeah, I mean the freight companies, they're quite amusing. Sometimes you tell them how long the boat is, and they send a transit van.
Yeah.
It's not going to go in. Oh no.
Yeah.
So you have to be really specific. I need a flat trailer or to get these boats there.
Yeah. And is it, do you pack anything specific for the remote conditions that you're going to be working in?
For Greenland,
Or is it just
we normally go in the summer then. All the trips I've done, so you've got those long daylight hours. So it's going to be, a real mixture of it could be quite hot, then it could be really, really cold. You have got storms coming through, you've got sea ice to deal with. So you just pack for that variety of conditions, really. And then the climbing side of it is, we can't big wall. Although I have done one trip where we've taken big wall gear, but weren't in kayaks there. It has to be something like an alpine rack, doesn't it? So, you're trying to do alpine style routes, so you haven't got a massive amount of climbing gear, just enough to sort of get on stuff and get off stuff, really. So it's going to be the trouble is you've got to get all the food in, the camping gear, the warm clothing, climbing rack. I've taken crampons and axes before, just because sometimes you approach up a sort of glacial type approach, and that's all got to go in the boat. So it can be a pretty tight fit.
Now, how long do you tend to go for then?
I think the longest I've been out in the boat, 26 days.
Wow.
Yeah. That got everything in for 26 days. I mean, the great thing is we don't have to worry about water. We can always find water. I mean, water takes up a massive amount of room.
Yeah.
I remember kayaking in Baja, and we had to carry all the water. I mean, it was only a week's trip, but it was a massive amount.
Yeah.
You can always find water that is drinkable. I mean, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So what about comms or GPS and things like that? Do you take anything like that with you?
Well, I sort of come from that generation before mobiles, so I have probably only a couple of trips I've taken really good forms of communication. So a lot of the early trips were just with probably backup with an EPIRB. I did one trip in Alaska with Twin. We had a sat phone there to get picked up by the ski plane. And then last trip was the first time I'd taken an inReach, which was very useful, I have to say, because we could get weather forecasts as well. But a lot of the times we've sort of been caught out by weather because we've had to rely on, barometers really, and just what we can see coming in. So, and because you're in the fjord systems there, you sometimes don't get a chance to see weather systems coming in from the ocean. So I've been caught out a couple of times, both kayaking and on climbing trips. We've been stormed off stuff, just because we didn't have access to weather forecast. But no, I mean, I think it's it's great with these modern devices that you've got access to that. The problem is, I suppose, is that I think if you have a sat phone, then it tends to take away a little bit of the element of the adventure, because you've got something in a box you could ring home, and if you ring home, it's never good news, is it? Somebody misses you or something's gone on that you can't do anything about. So I've always put it to the team, going, listen, I don't really want to take a sat phone, but if anybody's, if some of them have got kids, if they want to say, look, we need that, then I'll go, okay, we'll have it, but it's in the box and it doesn't get pulled out for anything rather than emergencies. Because I think you just think you've suddenly got this little get out of jail card, haven't you?
There's an excuse there, isn't there, potentially at the end of it? To not go any
It
further.
changes psychology, doesn't it? And in a very, very small way. My youngest daughter just got her information through for a Duke of Edinburgh's award, and one of the selling points for this particular company providing the service for the school was that the kids on their expedition would be carrying a GPS or a tracker, and for me, I was like, surely that defeats the entire object. They need to understand that they're completely self-sufficient. There's perhaps teachers or instructors hidden in bushes and making sure they're okay. So, they've got that element of safety watching over them. But if you don't know it's there, or if you can't see it, it's very different. I think it can change your very much the feel of your that kind of self-reliance and being away from stuff. So I'm sure it's I might be alone in that, thinking there's probably other parents that like, yeah, God, absolutely, that's brilliant, that's the best, that's well worth the money. But when I got the information, I was like, really?
Yeah, I think it definitely changes the whole sort of sense of the trip. It's it could be foolhardy to say, well, why don't you take stuff? But you're basically I think you're making good decisions based on the fact of, well, good mountaineering or sea decisions based on the fact that you've got to make good decisions, because you haven't, I mean, EPIRB, the problem with an EPIRB, you press a button, there's no feedback. So, you are relying on the fact that
somebody's heard it.
And, and you've got to be realistic with people. If it's a really bad injury, you ain't getting, you're not really going to get out there, are you? If you've got a major bleed or anything like that, you're not going to get rescued in time. So I think you've got to be realistic with people, not to wish to sound doom and gloom. Is that's part of the trip, isn't it? I mean, it's an adventurous trip, and there are risks involved in that.
Yeah. And the areas you go to, are they mapped? Do you have maps with you?
Yeah, they're quite old, some of the maps, and then it was because I think the Danish, because Greenland used to be a Danish colony. That's probably the wrong word, because it's a very big Danish country, and they've sold that. There's some old Danish maps, but a lot of them are pretty old, because when you look at the sea ice cover, a lot of the islands, I mean, it's all retreated, so often the stuff that looks like it's all covered in ice, as you paddle in, it's retreated along. But I mean, they're fine. They're fine. They tend to be reasonably large scale. They're not, they're not really detailed maps, but they're enough, more than enough to paddle around. And we've got an inReach. You can get, it's got a GPS mapping system on it. But that's the first time I've actually taken a mapping system, was last time. But yeah, you can navigate by the maps. It's not a problem.
So just a quick bit of Googling on Greenland there. It's an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. So
there we go.
It was, yeah. So exactly. So it was like, okay then. I like that.
Well, actually, it's independent now.
Yeah, indeed.
But they still pump loads of money into it. The Danes, they still feel. I mean, there's not, apart from a bit of tourism and there's some fishing. There isn't really a big industry there, so they need, they're not really self-sufficient. So they still. There's a massive mineral wealth in Greenland, but they've been, luckily they haven't. They've not exploited it, so it's still sort of really remote.
Yeah. And I guess, like you said, most of it's covered in ice for quite a lot of the time anyway. So there's not a great deal to. There isn't a great deal of industry that potentially could be set up there, I suppose.
No, in winter, I mean, it's all iced in. They can't get resupplied by boat, so they have to get resupplied by plane, or they boats just bring up like a season's worth of supplies. These Arctic line boats, they just fill the shop with it, and then that's got to last until the ice breaks up. And although they can get stuff brought in by plane.
So can you just give us a bit more of an overview back to the sort of the paddling and the climbing stuff, but more of an overview of the specific kit that you take with you? So you've mentioned some of the bit, I guess, on the kit with climbing, but on the paddling side maybe.
Yeah, I think the first trip I did, we didn't have dry seats. We just had sort of mountaineering trousers and Wellington boots and stuff like that. I think we're a little bit naive. And then ever since that, I've pretty much taken dry suit. So, dry suit, wellies, buoyancy aid, and then be able to change into sort of warmer kit in the evening. So a whole set of thermals I take down, big down duvet jacket, and sort of set of another set. I've got another set of wellies I use for walking around camp, and then and then sleeping bags, normally big down bag with a silk liner, good mats, bomb-proof tent, and then as far as cooking goes, MSR, not Whisper Light, something like that, one of those.
Yeah,
Dragonfly, something like that. So one that will work with gas and for whatever it is. But to be honest, most of the time cooking on open fires.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's quite a bit of wood around, and you just go along and try and collect wood before you get to where if you see somewhere there's wood, you go straight to the back of the boat. So when you arrive at a campsite, if there's not wood around, you've always got enough to get a fire going. And then that saves a load of fuel. And then just have the fuel as a backup for probably breakfast in the morning, where you don't want to get out and start a fire. You just just get gas going and get your brew on, and also for lunchtime. What else really? So yeah, and then climbing gear would be, like I said, a normal rack mixture of cams and nuts, quick draws, slings, two ropes, I think we took 9.2 last time, 50-meter ropes.
50 meters, yeah.
Yeah, we did. We took 50s. I've taken 60s before, but taken 50s, and then and then obviously you've got rock boots, and then a good set of mountaineering boots, and set of waterproofs that are separate from the dry suit and all that sort of thing. So basically, you could paddle. You've got paddling gear, and you've got mountaineering gear, and you've got climbing gear and climbing clothing. And then I would probably take some other bits, knives, axes, stuff like that to chop wood, and then all the food.
And yeah, so there's a lot. Do you end up with a lot of that packed on top of the boat then? Does it, or is there enough storage for you to get it all in?
Depends. The boats we had last time, I've used some German boats before, and they're great because they're massive, and they take it all. So the only thing I'd have to have on the back deck with those would be the sort of kit bag and the gun, to strap that on the back. And then I've had a trip down to South Greenland where we had smaller boats, and we had shed loads of gear on the back deck, just a massive mound of gear in the dry, which of course then affected how the boat responded in wind. But with that trip, we knew we were doing a circular trip, so we managed to dump caches of food so we could get rid of some of it, because we knew we were going to come back on that route. But that was, and obviously, you've got everything between your legs. You've got bags filling all that, because the cockpit is probably about 70 litres, so you can get a load of gear, but it's just getting out.
I was going to say, is that not breaking the ultimate rule?
Luckily I've never gone over, so
I was going to say that you don't want to roll, do you?
No, you don't want to roll. So I suppose it's awkward getting out of lunch, because you have to sort of claw the stuff out between your legs and then throw it onto wherever you landed, then try and get yourself out. But you try and keep the food packed at the front and the back of the boat, so you don't have to unload everything every night. So you just take one bag, and that's got everything for two of you or whoever there are, and then you can just take that to the camp, and then and that has evening meal, breakfast and lunch, and then so you have a little system. Then if you take it out backwards and front, you keep the sort of trim, the weight of the boat level. So it's just thinking about how you manage that, really.
And you just casually chucked in there some of the stuff that you have on the back deck, and mentioned the word gun.
I mean,
just toss it in there in passing. Yeah, I think I know the reason, but yeah, why do you have that?
Well, I mean, wherever you go, really. I mean, there's always the danger of bears. So I have not taken one once, and then it having been told that there's no bear activity, and then of course come across bear activity. So yeah, I just always just have a firearm. It's arranged over the years from some of you hold up a bank with, to a pump action shotgun to rifles with sort of lead tip bullets. So just something that gives you a bit of peace of mind, really.
Yeah. So you've never had a close encounter with a bear then?
So I've only had one trip. So up in the north, way up northeast Greenland, there's a big fjord system, which is the biggest fjord system in the world, actually. It's up near a place, it's called Scoresby or Tokatormat. And we did done 2 trips there. And one trip we went out on so one trip was in the fjord system, climbing and paddling. And the second one was we came out of the fjord system and went north on a sort of pretty exposed coast up towards Liverpool land. And I think it was the second or third night we ended up getting storm-bound on a beach, and just basically just sleeping during the day, waiting to get the storm to die. And then I think we're in the tent, and then I remember I heard something, woke up, and then the bear had just ripped into the tent. It was round by our feet. And they're really big when you're lying down, I have to say.
Yeah.
So I think so we had the gun in the tent with us, and so I managed to just grab hold of the gun and just bang it on the nose with the butt, and it went off. And then it came back again, because we had a kayak. We dragged the kayaks up, and we came. So again, we were sort of now we were awake, and we were waiting on the way. We heard some ruffling outside by the boats, and I looked outside, and there was 3 of them there. There was a mother and 2 cubs, and they were sort of had the hatch cover out and on its mouth, trying to get into the food in the boat. So we both got out the tent, started banging and legging, chasing them off, and eventually it dropped the hatch cover out its mouth, and we managed to retrieve it. And then, but the funny thing was, we both ran out the tent after this thing, and then I remember looking at Simon and going, "I thought you had the gun." And he went,
"Oh no!"
He went, "I thought you had the gun." And so I said, "Well, you amuse it, and I'll go back and get the gun." He went, "No, you're the team leader. You amuse it. I'll go back and get the gun." So anyway, we went back and got the gun, and then the thing dropped it. So luckily we couldn't afford to lose that big hatch cover, so we had to repair it. And then so we thought, we'll go back to the islands to get away from the bears. And about another 10 days into the trip, I remember being on this island and going off to collect firewood. And Simon was back. I think we found some old hut we'd sort of repaired the door a little bit on, so we felt a little bit more secure rather than the tent. And then I remember just seeing something swim out of the water, and sort of start coming towards me. And all I had was a bit of firewood, and it was the bear. It was not big, but it was a young male bear, which is the ones you've got to look out for, sort of thing. Oh my God. So I didn't have a gun, and I know they can run pretty fast. So I thought, anyway, what's going to happen? So anyway, I took some photographs, and it got closer and closer, and then it must have smelt me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't smell very good, or I didn't smell. It was something that it was an unaccustomed smell. It didn't, because it hadn't seen me, because the eyesight is not as good as the smell, and it just legged it back into the sea and buggered off, which was fairly handy actually at the time. But the most terrifying thing is I've got a really good shot of it coming at me, and it's my partner's screenshot on her phone, which I just don't know what that tells me.
Yeah, there's so much in that, isn't there? Yeah.
So close, I almost got rid of him. Yeah.
And I was going to say, and now you never shower when you're on expedition just after that moment.
Yeah.
For that. We'll smell as badly as we want. There's no need for deodorant ever.
No. And I remember we coming back off one trip, and we'd we obviously finished the trip. We smelled obviously pretty rough, and then we had a shower. And the only thing, and we only bought towels with us, and the only thing we could clean ourselves with, I had this cloth, this J cloth, which I've been using to gut all the fish. And so it was covered in fish innards. And I remember both of us were trying to dry ourselves with this damp J cloth with bits of fish on it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, again, defeating the object of what you've just done, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely honking. Brilliant.
You just turned yourself back into polar bear food, basically.
Oh yeah, just jabbed it. Yeah.
That's it. Oh dear me. Well, that's the land-based stuff. Have you ever encountered any water-based predators as well?
Orcas probably, but that wasn't in Greenland. That was in Norway.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive when they come really, really close. Although with that one, it was funny. I was working out in the Lofoten Islands up in Norway, and they're not normally there this time of year. And I had four. It sounds like a tough gig. I had four Swedish ladies to guide for 6 days, and there was this research boat that had been like following these orcas. The orcas weren't playing ball at all. You know, they were just anyway. So we paddle out, and these girls are like, oh, and that I don't know what happened. Is the orcas just suddenly went, oh, this looks interesting, and then they spent about half an hour like just swimming right underneath us and by us, and they were like, you can see the guys in the research boat like,
yeah.
I mean, they were really close. I was like, oh, this is, and so and then obviously minke whale out in Greenland. I've come across minke whale before coming towards you, and but I'm trying to think. I've had hammerhead sharks swim past me.
Yeah, wow.
I was we were in Fuerteventura a few years ago, and I was out there on holiday, but I happened to I wanted to rent some boats off a guy who'd actually failed on one of his advanced leader assessments. Lovely guy called Hohei, and he invited us out to join him with this trip with these clients that had just arrived from England, and we went around Lobos Island, and the swell there, because it's in the middle of the Atlantic, like 25-second intervals. I've been watching it the day before, thinking it's massive around the north side of that island, and and he decided to take these clients around the island, and I'm thinking, look, just because I'm here, don't. There's no steering there. If anything goes wrong here, so this massive swell, so they're all like hanging on for grim life, and I'm thinking, I said, let's just stay way out, and then we can, at least we've got a bit of sea room if one of them dives in. And at that moment, this shoal of hammerheads came through, and I was like, and they're going, what was that? And I was going, oh, don't worry about it. I think that was the final straw. The hammerheads just sort of gone straight through the group. Yeah.
Back we go. Yeah, back to land. Yeah. Wow.
I know why I failed him now.
Yeah.
Well, that is, if you're going to fail, that's the way to do it, isn't it? That's pretty amazing. All boxes ticked.
Yeah. Why did you do it to yourself? Oh, I don't know what they'd like. Yeah, right.
So you've done all these fantastic trips, Olly. How do you sort of minimize your impact on the areas that you travel to, as in kind of dealing with personal waste and rubbish, and I'm assuming that the fires that you cook with are from driftwood and things. How do you sort of build that into your trips?
Well, as far as I mean, there's no trees on Greenland, so I mean, they called it Greenland, didn't they?
I didn't realise.
The Vikings put it Greenland to encourage some of their fellow people to come out there. But I mean, it's green. I mean, it's because the shrubs it never gets a chance to grow very fast. So everything's really everything they made was relying on driftwood. So the Greenland paddle they all talk about. The only reason, one of the main reasons, is that shape, because that's all they had was driftwood, really. So having the fires is no problem. There is around the settlements, they basically dump everything into the sea. That includes waste. That includes toilets. I mean, because there's no pipe. All the pipe work is above the ground there, and basically. Everybody uses the toilet, and it all goes into a big plastic bag at the settlement, and then the guy called the Scheitmeister comes around and picks it all up. Very proud of his job, and he basically takes it to the edge of the village, and he just cuts the bags and let it all go out into the sea. They try and burn the plastic, but it goes anyway. That's what they do. So what we try and do is we either if we're going to go to the loo in the ocean, and then save on toilet tissue, just clean yourself with the salt water. So we don't actually dig pits anywhere and leave stuff there. As far as rubbish go, we burn what we can, and we take out what would not be suitable. The only problem is I know if I take it back to the village and put it in a rubbish bin, it's going to be burnt down by where they get rid of all the other stuff. So some plastic. We've actually cleaned up quite a few beaches. And there's one site I've been to 2 or 3 times where it just seems to be facing the right way. And every time I go there, we cleared the whole beach once, which is quite a big beach, and then burnt as much as we could. And then we go back, and it's pretty much the next morning there's little bits of stuff, and it just builds up and builds up. But a lot of the other areas, you're right. I mean, you know that you come across pretty clean beaches and stuff like that. I mean, the old Inuit houses, when you come across the old dwellings, you could tell where they were because they used to basically throw everything out the door. So none of that would be any form of plastic in those days. It was all just, you know, what bits of steel they didn't want, they'd throw out the door, and you can always tell because the vegetation is really rich round by the door. That, well, you know, there's loads of vegetation that is far superior to anything else around. So they've got this habit of, and that's sort of gone down the generations. They don't really, they just throw stuff away. Yeah. And the Danes, you know, they haven't got a system of bringing a boat in to take the rubbish out and dispose of it. I mean, they'll take bottles out and rubbish like that, but they just have a rubbish tip at the end of the villages, and they just tip everything into the sea.
I suppose, like you said earlier, if everything's got to be shipped in, then everything would have to be shipped out as well, wouldn't you know, no matter what that was. It would, any detritus or any rubbish or anything would have to be shipped out as well. If there's otherwise it's just going to sit there on top of the land anyway, isn't it? I guess.
Even some of them mechanical diggers they've had, or they just driven into the sea and just dumped them in the sea. You know, they're just rotting in the sea and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, the settlements are very small in a big place, but it is an issue for them, you know.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I hadn't realised any of that, but we kind of live on a quite a costed island, really, where everything's done for us and hidden away, and or perhaps less so in recent years, as we've discovered. But it's really interesting. I suppose the take home there is don't necessarily go to a luxury hotel on Greenland. Take your kayak and have travel minimally and have a small amount of impact as possible. Yeah.
I mean, even the water supply, there's, you know, it's all delivered. There's one lake on where we go. This is island we land on. It's got basically leveled the top of the mountain off, so it's a very short takeoff and landing site. And the water supply comes from. So this must have been an original settlement because of the water supply. So they deliver the water by truck to every house, and every house has a big sort of capacity drum, and that's driven from that lake. So they put a pipe, and then they just deliver it to all the houses. So, you know, if you're having a shower, you've got to think, you know, like, so it was just very quick, just a quick wash. You've got to wear that you're using their water supply.
Yeah.
One of the questions that struck me throughout this, Ollie, to be honest, is why did you choose to go and do this? You know, kayaking and climbing for a month in Greenland. What piqued your interest in doing that? Like that, he's gone all wistful. Why did I?
I suppose it was just like, you know, why the first trip we went out there would probably answer that better, because once you've been there, you realise actually that it ticks a lot of the boxes. I got a sort of fellow when I was working at the Brennan in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. I had a sort of a paddling partner called Leo. We used to do a lot of the work together, and we came up with a sort of idea. We wanted to paddle to the North Pole, magnetic North Pole. This is not obviously. So we just came up with this wacky idea anyway. So we thought, well, we better go to do some training first. So we thought we'd go to Greenland and see what it would be like. And so this is when we went out, and went out in wellies and you know, mountaineering trousers, and we'd had a school had promised they had some boats out there, and which took us about 3 days to find the boats. It was all a bit shambolic, but anyway, and we just headed north a little bit. And that whole trip was sort of a bit a real sort of adventure. And then I suppose it just gave me the bug, and I thought, okay, well, you know, it's an amazing place. It's there's not too many restrictions on what you do once you get there. And it's a massive continent. And so I've just sort of been drawn back to it time and time again, and also trying to do different areas. You know, they're all quite individually different, from South Greenland, which is, you know, the windiest region in the world and really challenging seas, to Northwest Greenland, which has got like really big walls and fjords and stuff like that, and then to the east, which has got a lot of more sea ice, I suppose. So they all have individual sort of challenges in their own right, but it's 24 hours of daylight as well. So, you know, even I can't get benighted on a climb. No, I can't. Just keep going. And I've done 2 trips. One trip was just been a purely climbing trip. Yeah, so that was a different aspect, because the boys I was with, they weren't paddlers. So yeah, it's just a really impressive place.
And
And
you
then
mentioned
the rock
sea.
as well. I suppose we've talked a lot about paddling and less about the climbing, but just very quickly, is the rock sound? Is it a lot of it? Is it granite? I'm assuming it's a form of granite.
It's a real mix, really. I mean, I've come across some really good climbing, and I've come across some horrendous climbing. I mean, the climbing trip we did, it was I've been to this fjord before, and I'd seen this big face, and so I thought, oh well, you know what, it looks really good, and so we went back just purely with the climbing team, and that was pretty good climbing, actually, to be honest. You know, we were there for a month climbing on this, and we did some other stuff, but the quality was good. So you never know. I mean, you never really know till you get on it, and it looks like it's going to be good from a distance, and then you get on it, and it's a pile of choss. So you just got to go and stick your nose in, really.
And mostly multi-pitch, or some single pitch, or a mix?
A mixture, really. I mean, that route was, I think, 24 pitches, so it was 1,000 meters. But then I've done trips where I've just done, you know, 7, 8 pitches, or just come across little crags on the way and done a couple of pitches. It's just, you know, whatever you come across, really. And then I've seen some places where they, you know, it's got great potential, but just didn't have the right team to do it. So, you know, you just paddle along, really, and then you see somewhere nice, you maybe spend a couple of days there, go and explore, see if you can find some cragging or some new routing, and then move on to the next place.
You mentioned sea ice, paddling through sea ice a few times as well. Do you ever like have to get out and haul the kayak across?
Only on the first trip, actually, which is bizarre, because we were wearing inappropriate clothing, and we had a load of pack ice to get through. And you'd follow little leads, and then sometimes you'd just try and squeeze the kayak through, and then sometimes you'd have to get out and drag your boat across. And so I thought that was the norm, you know. So every time I go back there, I thought, this is what we're going to have to deal with, the pack ice coming in. And then I haven't really had to deal with it before. I've had to deal with, like, you know, following leads in and out of stuff, but it's normally been a lot of icebergs and slushy ice coming off Carving Glacier, but never had that low-lying pack ice that gets blown in before. Because it's pretty difficult getting in and out your boat, dragging a boat across the pack ice, and you're trying to, you know, you don't know what you're standing on, and you don't want to go in. It's the worst case scenario, really.
Dragging, I'm just trying to picture dragging a loaded sea kayak in wellies. This just be unbelievably hard.
And that was why I was asking, I guess, in many respects, because it would, you're probably pretty knackered anyway, and then having to get out and get in and the weight in the kayak must be something else as well with it when it's fully loaded. Yeah.
Once you get it out, it's not too bad, because, you know, you're basically pulling on a very surface, aren't you? So once you get the thing moving, you know, you normally drag it. I think I've carried axes before, a little tiny touring axe, but it was just like boom, you know, there was like a toffee hammer hitting onto ice. It was completely and utterly useless. I think it fell off and dropped into the ocean. But that's the worst case scenario. I never had to do that since. I mean, I have got out before and got up on an iceberg, and then use that to obviously not a steep one, just so I could get up in a set of wellies, and then use that to check out the leads in the distance. But I've only had to do that once I mean, the ideal thing is if you can get to the shore and get to high ground, and you can normally see where there might be an open lead. But yeah, you never know, because some of the carving fjords, you never know what the conditions are like. You can stick your nose into it, and it depends on the wind direction, which way it's blowing. Sometimes you get through, sometimes you can't.
I guess that last question for me is that you've mentioned people being with you and leading expeditions and so on in other areas of the country, in other areas of the world rather. How can people get involved in expeditions to Greenland? Is it something that you lead people on tours, for example, up in Greenland?
I mean, you can go on commercial trips. There's a few operators that run commercial trips, mainly on the east. I mean, you've got to have your own adventures, then it's one of those ones, isn't it? It's like there's funding bodies available. Part of the Arctic Club, I'm on the committee for funding, and we've just had our meeting in February to allocate funding, and we've had a real mix of expeditions applying for that, from climbing trips to kite skiing in Svalbard to scientific trips by university students. So I think what we're looking for, I mean, they'll definitely want to encourage young people to apply for funding. You just need to be realistic about what you're doing, and get some training, or the team needs to be reasonably balanced. There's a reasonable amount of experience, but it's not. I mean, we've all been there. We know where we've applied for funding in the past. I've applied for a lot of funding where there's a starting point. If you're lucky, you get invited by somebody who's more experienced, and you sort of do your apprenticeship there, and then if not, you just apply. And in the old days, it was a bit more Victorian, I think. I remember applying for Churchill Fellowship, and it was more like, have you made a risk assessment? And there's no such thing as a risk assessment. What happens if all goes wrong? Oh, we think we can look after ourselves. Marvelous, sounds marvelous.
Yeah.
So it's not like Victorian, the more champagne it was, the more they're likely to give you money. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. We'll just bring the Royal Navy, and they'll come and help us. Yeah. Back in the old days. Yeah.
And have you got insurance? No, we're thinking about getting. Oh, I'm sure you will, marvelous. But it's all tightened up now. I mean, they're obviously we need for the Gino Watkins Fund. We need a risk assessment where we never used to. And the application forms have to be filled in properly, not like 4 lines. I'm going to go and do this, which you used to get away with.
Yeah. I like that. Literally back of a fag packet risk assessment stuff. Yeah. Love that.
I suppose with the funding side of things, it's don't be too phased. Just get on and have a crack. And there's people like yourself and people who are really keen to help and give advice and help folks get out and do their own adventures, as opposed to sort of going and buying a perceived risk-free tour. But I know we worked at Plassie Brennan last November, Olly, at the expedition symposium that you pulled together, and there was just an absolute wealth of fantastic information for anybody planning a trip. And pretty much anywhere in the world, really. There was experience from all over, wasn't there? And hopefully there'll be another one of those again this autumn. So it's definitely something to watch out for if you're planning your own adventures.
That's why we started off, is just trying to encourage people to go out there and just think it's not impossible. Just come up with a plan. I mean, everybody's realistic. All the sort of funding bodies are realistic. If you don't achieve what you're going to do, that's fine, as long as you have a go. So hopefully we'll run another one this year.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. It was great. There was but I didn't even get to go to many of the workshops, so I'm going to try and get to a few more this time.
Nor did I. I ended up having to run a few extra ones because we had a couple of people that didn't turn up. So I was really keen to go and see some of that stuff. It's always good to see somebody's other perspective on things.
Yeah, definitely. And our workshops were full each time we did one. I was hoping to have some downtime too, but we ended up being full the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of got a date at the moment, and then we're just trying to get stuff organised. So hopefully, I wanted to make it every biannually, just so it's a bit more special. But the BMC are going to be running one anyway. It just seems a bit may as well just get involved with it.
Yeah. And it's a great resource. There's for I think there was only 80 spaces, wasn't there? And it was fully subscribed. So if once word gets out, I'm sure it's going to be a good thing. So we'll be back with our stove of food, fuel, and nutrition. I think we did.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was really good. I had a great team with me from MSR and from Expedition Foods, and
it was always nice getting a freebie, a little striker.
Yeah, hot food. Yeah, got a striker. Yeah.
You can never get enough swag, can you? Let's face it.
Oh, you're right there. Yeah, always want more kit.
Well, Olly, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely fascinating. I think Wayne and my jaws have both been on the floor at numerous occasions. Yeah, really interesting to get an insight into what you do and going out and having adventures and going out to the wilderness and what makes that possible. If you would like to learn more about Olly, you can find more information, including instructional DVDs, at his website www.rockandseaadventures.co.uk. If you are planning your own adventure and you need some top quality kit, you can also go to our online shop at www.climbers-shop.com. And there is also a wealth of free information and top tips on our sister website, www.joebrownoutdooracademy.com.